Welcome to Real Garage, Season 3, Episode 4. And this is the rear end I'm going to try and shoehorn into my 69 Trans Am. Well, actually, there's no try. I'm definitely stuffing this thing in there. And today, I need to make the track bar mounts for the rear end and the inside of the frame. But before I get too deep on that, I want to do a quick project that'll make my life easier when TIG welding. My issue is all of my TIG filler metal. I used to store it underneath my weld bench, but it sticks out a little and it's always in the way. So I moved it upstairs into my loft. Now I'm constantly running up there to grab filler metal. And when I'm done with a job, I usually have some of these smaller leftover pieces. And sometimes it's even tough to figure out what alloy they are. So my objectives are have enough sizes and types of filler metal down here without taking up too much room and organizing the smaller pieces. Warning, read and follow all labels and your owner's manuals. I've decided to make a rack that attaches to the side of my weld bench. The frame will be made of 063 3003 alloy aluminum and have 12 PVC tubes for storing full lengths of filler metal. My Miller ArcStation weld bench is 29 inches deep. My top piece will start out 5.5 inches by 29 inches and the bottom will be 4 inches by 29 inches. Now determine my hole spacing. I'm using 1-inch PVC, which has an outside dimension of 1 5/16 inches. The closest hole saw or hole punch I have is 1 3/8 inches. Based on that, starting with the top 5.5-inch piece, I'll center my 12 holes 1 5/8 inches from the long edge. Then, starting 3.5 inches in, put a hole every 2 inches. My 12th hole should land at 25.5. Do the same with the bottom 4-inch piece, except 2 1/8 inches from the edge of the long side instead of 1 5/8 inches. So I made a little 2 3/8 inch hole that I can center on this piece. The reason I'm actually tracing out the circle is because I'm going to cheat and use my Rotex punch. And it's much easier to line up the punch using the outside of the circle being marked instead of the center point. If you're using a standard hole saw, then obviously go with the center point. Now make some holes. Okay, on the top piece, I'm going to do 2 1-inch 90-degree bends on the front side and a 1/2 inch 90-degree bend on the back edge. Basically, it'll look like this. Now on the bottom piece, it's going to get a 1/2 inch bend on the front side and a 1-inch 90-degree bend on the back. In front of each large hole, I'm drilling 2 smaller 1/8 inch holes through the top and the 1-inch bend underneath, approximately 1/2 inch from the edge. I'm going to make 2 gusset style sides for these. They're basically mirror images of each other. It's going to be 4.5 inches by 4 inches. And then I'm measuring down 1 inch. So basically matching this front inch lip. And I'm measuring over 1.5 inches. And I'm going to cut this piece off. This 1.5 inch piece is going to be bent at a 90 degree. but I gotta make sure that I cut a 1/2 inch off the top of that bend for clearance for the back 90-degree bend on the top tray. So basically it's gonna be the same for the other side, except it's just a reverse image. Okay, again, 4.5 inches by 4 inches, those are your two pieces. 1.5 inch wide bend, cut a 1/2 inch off the top, inch down, 1.5 inch over, cut that drop off piece. Since this is 3003 aluminum, I'm using 1/16 4043 filler metal. I have my Multimatic 220 AC/DC set for 90 Hertz, 72% on the balance because I'm welding an outside corner and I want a little bit more oxide cleaning, and my amperage is set for 65, which I'm regulating with the foot control. The bottom gussets are much easier. They're just 3 inches by 4 inches with a 1.5 inch 90-degree bend. Weld settings are the same. Cut 12 pieces 35 to 35.25 inches long of the 1 inch PVC. Clean and deburr the ends. Mount it to the weld bench. Notice I left just enough room on my bottom rack to slide the PVC end caps under. This will keep the tubes nice and tight when removing the top cap. It also helps to use sandpaper or emery cloth to make the inside dimension of the top cap a little looser, or even drill a small hole in it. Install the tubes and use a rubber hammer to seat them tight into the bottom caps. There it is, another shop optimization project in the books. I got all my full-length cut pieces in their tubes and the corresponding drop-off pieces in the small holes I drilled in front of them, so I'll never mix them up again. Now I just need to find my label maker. So this is what I need to work on. The track bar mount that came with the kit that I bought from Detroit Speed and Engineering isn't going to work with this type of rear end housing. It's designed for most rear ends like your 9-inch Fords or even your GM 12 bolts. Something that has a 3-inch tube, which this has, but it doesn't have this big extension on the back of the rear end housing. So basically, there's no way that the track bar is going to clear my gear cover back here. So I'm going to have to modify this mount and extend it so that the track bar clears it so it can mount to the other side of the frame. So I think I need to back up and punt. I actually did a little bit of a miscalculation. And it all comes down to the head of a bolt. I was all worried about the clearance between the gear cover and the fuel cell and making sure I had enough room for the track bar to slip through there, which I do. It's 2.5 inches, so there's plenty of room for the track bar to come through. But what I didn't calculate for was when I extended this mount out, that the head of the bolt was going to be into the fuel cell. So I'm going to actually just back up and punt, redesign the track bar and the mounts. And you know, we could have just edited that all out and you would have never known the difference, but that's not real garage. So we'll take that as a learning experience. Okay, let me show you what I was talking about and how I'm gonna fix it. So this is a mock-up rear end from my old race cars, and I was gonna run that track bar right behind the gear case here. But as we know, when I extended the mount, I wouldn't be able to get the bolts in, and the bolts were going to be hitting the fuel cell frame. So now what I'm going to do is make a different set of mounts here, and I'm going to run a modified track bar that's actually going to go up and over the rear end and attach to the mount on the frame. Now, That's not going to be a problem. I got plenty of clearance here. There's 6 inches at least, and even in the most severe cases of bump travel, I'm never going to see that. So that's my plan. A lot of this is being spot stitched because the track bar mount is 1/8 inch thick and the frame is only about 18 gauge, and I don't want to burn through the thinner frame. I have my machine auto set for 1/8 inch, but I have it turned down to 16.8 volts and 290 inches per minute. I'm using 030 ER 70S6 wire. Now this upper cross member I made, that's also 1/8 inch, so I can turn my settings up a little bit for that. I'm TIG welding the rear end mount using 1/16 ER 80 SD2 filler metal. Okay, there we go. Track bar mount on the rear end. And actually this is what the new track bar is going to look like. It's going to have a slight 20 to 25 degree bend in it, so it'll clear the top of my gear case here. Unfortunately, I can't use the track bar I already have because putting a bend in it is actually going to shorten it up about 1 inch. So I'm going to get a new piece of heavy wall 4130 chromoly and make a new track bar. Next time on Real Garage, we're going to talk about pulse. Not this type of pulse, pulse TIG.